Picture this. A kingdom bathed in moonlight. Stone walls that have stood for centuries suddenly begin to weep blood. The year is 1307, and across the sprawling realm of France, something unspeakable is awakening. Doors that should remain closed start opening on their own. Animals flee the streets of Paris. And in the throne room of King Philip IV, a letter arrives sealed in black wax, marked with symbols no royal scribe dares to translate. What if I told you that what happened next would haunt European royalty for 3 centuries? That the words spoken on a single autumn night would topple dynasties, end bloodlines, and plunge an entire continent into paranoia so deep that even the Pope himself would wake screaming. This isn't legend. This isn't folklore passed down through peasant tales. This is documented history that scholars still whisper about in locked archives. And the most terrifying part, the curse never ended. It simply went dormant. Waiting. Imagine you're standing in the center of medieval Paris. The air reeks of smoke and burning flesh. It's March 18th, 1314. The sun is setting over the Seine, painting the sky the color of old blood. On a small island in the river, a wooden platform has been erected. Crowds have gathered, thousands of them, pressed together in the dying light. They've come to watch an execution. But this is no ordinary execution. The man being led to the stake is Jacques de Molay, the 72nd and done. Final Grand Master of the Knights Templar, once the most powerful military order in all of Christendom. His hands are bound, his white beard stained with the filth of 7 years in a dungeon beneath the royal palace. For 7 years, he has been tortured. For 7 years he has confessed to crimes he never committed. Heresy, or devil worship, spitting on the cross. All lies. And he knows it. King Philip knows it. God knows it. But Philip needs gold, and the Templars have gold. And so the lies become truth when spoken by a crown. They chain de Molay to the stake. The executioner approaches with the torch. Crowd falls silent. And in that silence, something happens that will echo through the centuries. De Molay lifts his head. His voice, broken from torture, somehow carries across the water to the royal palace where King Philip watches from a window. The words he speaks are simple, direct. B. And they will prove to be the most expensive sentence ever uttered in human history. God knows. Who is wrong and has sinned, de Molay says. Soon a calamity will occur to those who have condemned us to death. He pauses. The flames are already licking at his feet. I summon Pope Clement V and King Philip IV to meet me before God's tribunal within the year. The torch falls. The fire rises. And as Jacques de Molay burns, witnesses will later swear they see something in the smoke. A shape. A presence. Something that doesn't dissipate with the wind, but instead spreads, like ink in water, across the Parisian sky. But here's where history takes a turn into something darker than any medieval mind could comprehend. Within 33 days, Pope Clement V is dead, writhing in agony, his internal organs failing. Physicians can find no natural cause. The Vatican records describe symptoms that medical historians today cannot explain. 8 months later, on November 29, 1314, King Philip IV suffers a stroke while hunting. He dies that same night, not yet 47 years old, screaming about flames and eyes watching him from the darkness. Both men dead within the year, exactly as the curse proclaimed. And that's when the real terror begins. You see, curses in the medieval world aren't what we think they are today. We imagine Halloween decorations and Hollywood special effects. But in the 14th century, a curse is a juridical act. It's a formal summoning before God's court. It's a transfer of guilt from the cursed to the curser, witnessed by heaven and hell, bound by blood and fire. When a man dies declaring his innocence and calling for divine judgment, he's not making a threat. He's initiating a cosmic legal proceeding. And according to medieval theology, once initiated, it cannot be stopped. It can only be satisfied. The French royal family is about to learn this lesson in the most brutal way imaginable. Let me take you back 7 years before the curse. Back to when the Templars still rule. We're in the year 1307. King Philip IV of France is drowning in debt. His endless wars with England have emptied the treasury. His debasement of the currency has triggered riots in the streets. He's already expelled the Jews and seized their property. He's already arrested the Italian bankers. But it's not enough. Never enough. And there, just across the river from his palace, stands the Templar fortress. The Temple. A city within the city. Immune to royal law. Answerable only to the Pope. And inside its walls, according to whispers and rumors, and the fevered imagination of a desperate king, lies the greatest fortune in Europe. Gold, silver, religious artifacts, ancient treasures brought back from the Holy Land. Enough wealth to save Philip's kingdom 10 times over. But there's a problem. The Templars are untouchable. They're warrior monks protected by papal decree, revered by the people, feared by everyone. They answer to no earthly king. To move against them would be to declare war on the church itself. Philip needs something else. He needs scandal. He needs heresy. He needs the people to beg him to destroy the Templars. So he manufactures it. Working in secret with his lawyers and advisors, Philip creates a list of charges so shocking, so obscene, that no one could possibly defend the accused. The Templars, he claims, spit on the cross during initiation rituals. They worship a demon head called Baphomet. They engage in homosexual practices. They deny Christ. They conspire with Muslims. They practice black magic. None of it is true. But truth doesn't matter when you control the narrative. On Friday, the 13th of October, 1307, Philip strikes before dawn across all of France. Simultaneously, royal soldiers move. They've been given sealed orders, not to be opened until the night before. The coordination is perfect. The surprise total. By sunrise, every Templar knight, sergeant, and chaplain in France is in chains. Over 5,000 men arrested in a single night. The operation is so swift, so complete, that later historians will call it the first police state action in European history. The Templars have no warning, no chance to hide their wealth or destroy evidence. They're dragged from their beds and thrown into dungeons. And there, in those dungeons, the real horror begins. Medieval torture is an art form. It's methodical, scientific almost. The torturers working for King Philip are the best in Europe. They know exactly how much pain a human body can endure before dying. And more importantly, they know how to keep it alive, suffering, for days, weeks, months. The rack that stretches joints until they pop. The strappado that dislocates shoulders. The foot roast that slowly cooks flesh. The crushing of fingers one by one. Sleep deprivation. Starvation. Sensory torture. Psychological torture. And always, always the promise that confession will end the pain. 36 Templars die under torture without confessing. But eventually, broken and destroyed, others begin to speak. They say what their torturers want to hear. Yes, we spat on the cross. Yes, we worship false idols. Yes, we are heretics. The confessions spread. Under torture, men will confess to anything. And Philip's lawyers carefully record every word. But Jacques de Molay resists. For weeks, for months, the Grand Master endures torments that would break lesser men. His body becomes a map of atrocity. And yet, he confesses to nothing. Until finally, after 7 years, broken in body if not in spirit, he makes a calculated decision. He confesses. He signs the documents. He plays the game. Because he's waiting for his moment. His one chance to tell the truth. And that moment comes on March 18th, 1314, when he's led to the stake for public execution. That's when he recants everything. That's when he declares his innocence before God and man. That's when he speaks the curse. Now, watch what happens to the French throne. Philip IV dies. His eldest son, Louis X, becomes king. Louis reigns for 18 months before he too dies suddenly at the age of 26. Poisoned, some say. Cursed, others whisper. His infant son lives for 5 days before dying in his cradle. No explanation. No natural cause. Just death. Philip's second son, Philip V, takes the throne. He rules for 5 years before dying at 28. Again, no clear cause. His body simply fails. Physicians are baffled. The people are terrified. 3 kings dead within 14 years. The dynasty Philip worked so hard to establish is crumbling. His third and final son, Charles IV, becomes king. He manages 6 years before he too dies at 33 without a male heir. Within 14 years, the direct Capetian line, which has ruled France for over 3 centuries, is extinct. Completely. Utterly. Gone. 3 kings. 3 brothers. All dead young. All without, leaving legitimate male heirs. And this triggers something unprecedented in European history. The throne of France is empty. Multiple claimants emerge. Disputes erupt. Alliances shatter. And in 1337 the 100 Years' War begins. A conflict so devastating that it will kill millions and reshape the entire continent. All of it traceable back to that moment on the island in the Seine, when Jacques de Molay spoke his curse. But it gets darker. The curse doesn't stop with the French throne. It spreads like plague through every royal house connected to Philip's conspiracy. The descendants of his key advisors begin dying under mysterious circumstances. Guillaume de Nogaret, Philip's chief lawyer, who drafted the charges against the Huguenots. Templars, screaming about demons in his bedchamber months after the execution. Enguerrand de Marigny, Philip's chief minister who orchestrated the arrests, is hanged on the very gallows he built for others. Pope Clement V's family line. These out within 2 generations, cursed with madness and disease. The royal house of Naples, which supported Philip's actions, descends into violent chaos. Everywhere the curse touches, bloodlines end, and medieval people notice. They connect the dots. They whisper in churches and taverns. The Templar curse is real. It's hunting. It's hungry. Imagine being a noble in 14th century France. You wake each morning wondering if today is the day the curse finds you. You watch your children, terrified that they'll show signs of the wasting sickness that took the last king. You avoid the temple ruins in Paris because people swear they hear chanting at night in languages that predate Latin. Priests perform exorcisms on former Templar properties only to flee in terror when candles explode and crucifixes turn black. The Pope orders the dissolution of the entire Templar order worldwide, trying to appease whatever force has been unleashed. But it's too late. The damage is done. The curse is written in blood and fire, and it cannot be unwritten. Here's what history books don't tell you. After the 100 Years' War begins, France experiences what chroniclers call the Great Dying. Not just war deaths. Something else. Something that defies natural explanation. Entire villages are found empty. Their inhabitants vanished without trace. Livestock dies en masse. Crops fail even in good weather. The Black Death arrives in 1348, killing 1/3 of Europe's population, and it hits France hardest of all. Scholars today debate the causes: rats, fleas, bacteria. But medieval people know. This is judgment. This is consequence. This is what happens when you burn innocent men and steal sacred gold. The Templar treasure itself becomes cursed. Philip never finds most of it. The Templars had warning, some historians believe, despite the surprise arrests. They moved their wealth, hid it, scattered it across Europe and beyond. Ships left France in the weeks before the arrests, carrying unknown cargo to unknown destinations. And wherever that treasure goes, disaster follows. Castles burned. Kingdoms fall. Anyone who touches Templar gold dies badly. The curse is embedded in every coin, every chalice, artifact. It's patient. It's eternal. It waits. Let me show you something that will chill your blood. In 1507, exactly 200 years after Philip's initial arrests, workers renovating the Templar fortress in Paris discover a sealed chamber. Inside are documents, records, account books that somehow survived the centuries. And among these papers they find something that stops them cold. A list, written in Jacques de Molay's own hand. A list of names. Every person who participated in his torture. Every lawyer who wrote false charges. Every judge who condemned innocent men. And next to each name, a date. Dates of death. Written years, sometimes decades before these people actually died. But here's the impossible part. The dates are correct. Every single one. Down to the day. How did de Molay know? How could he have known? Unless he wasn't predicting. Unless he was commanding. Unless the curse was more than words. Unless it was a schedule. The workers wall up the chamber again. They tell no one. But rumors spread. And the French crown, now under a different dynasty, sends scholars to investigate. These scholars disappear. Some flee to other countries. One leaves a letter describing what he read in those documents. It is not a curse, he writes, but a covenant. An agreement with powers that operate beyond the veil of our understanding. The curse will continue until the last descendant of Philip's line is erased from history. Until every stone of Ufri, his palace, is dust. Until his very name becomes a warning, rather than a legacy. The palace where Philip watched Jacques de Molay burn. Destroyed during the French Revolution. The dynasty that replaced the Capetians? Ended by guillotine. The temple, fortress where Templars were imprisoned and tortured. Demolished, its stones scattered. The very geography of Paris reshaped to eliminate traces of Templar presence. As if the city itself is trying to forget. As if erasure might equal absolution. But curses don't forget. They're patient. They're thorough. They work across centuries because they exist outside time. Medieval people understand this in ways we've forgotten. They know that words have power. That rituals have consequences. That innocence violated demands cosmic restitution. When Jacques de Molay is declaring his righteousness before God, he's not hoping for divine intervention. He's invoking it. He's triggering mechanisms built into the fabric of creation itself. Mechanisms that ensure justice, even if it takes 300 years. Consider the evidence. The direct Capetian line, extinct within 14 years. The 100 Years' War beginning exactly as that line ends. The Black Death hitting France hardest. Just decades later, the French Revolution finally destroying everything Philip built. The pattern is too consistent, too precise, too thorough to be coincidence. And yet modern historians dismiss it. They call it superstition. They attribute everything to natural causes and political inevitability. They ignore the documentation, the eyewitness accounts, the improbable string of deaths. They ignore it because accepting it means accepting that reality operates by rules we don't understand. That consequences exist beyond the physical. That some debts must be paid in blood and generations. But here's what they can't ignore. Here's the detail that haunts researchers to this day. In the Archives Nationales in Paris, sealed in a climate-controlled vault, there's a document. It's called the Chinon Parchment. It was hidden for 600 years, only discovered in 2001. This document proves that Pope Clement actually absolved the Templars of heresy charges, 1308 before the executions. The Pope knew they were innocent. He told Philip they were innocent. Philip executed them anyway. Which means the curse was justified. The innocence was proven. The cosmic crime was documented. And according to medieval theology, that makes the curse unbreakable. Permanent. binding on all generations. The shin on parchment reveals something else. Clement tried to stop the executions. He wrote to Philip, pleading for mercy. Philip ignored him. And in one letter, never made public, never translated fully until recently, Clement writes, "You have unleashed something that neither your crown nor my church can control. The innocent blood you spilled today will drown your children tomorrow. I absolve thee. Templars, I cannot absolve you." 33 days later, Clement is dead. Think about timing. Jacques de Molay burned on March 18, 1314. Pope Clement died on April 20, 1314. Exactly 33 days. Philippe died on November 29, 1314. Exactly 8 months and 11 days later. These aren't approximate dates. They're precise, down to the day, just as de Molay specified. Just as the curse demanded. The curse said within the year. Both died within the year. Not a day before the minimum time required to prove supernatural causation. Not a day after the maximum time allowed by the curse's terms. Perfect. Newton? Exact. Terrifying. Now imagine you're a French noble in 1315. The curse is 1 year old. Both targets are dead. And you start to wonder, who's next? Does the curse have a list? Is your name on it? You supported Philip's actions, or you stayed silent, or you profited from Templar property. Does that make you complicit? Does that mark you? Medieval people live in a world where curses are real, where divine justice is expected. Every unexplained death becomes evidence. Every illness becomes curse-related. Kelsemdai doan dorkai, Gelfsen tc innis. Curse-related. Every accident becomes judgment. The entire kingdom lives in terror. And it's not just nobles. The common people suffer too. Because when a land is cursed, everything suffers. The very soil becomes barren. Medieval chroniclers describe France after 1314 as a kingdom under shadow. Harvests fail. Rivers run strange colors. Animals behave unnaturally. Birds fall from the sky for no reason. The people beg priests for protection. They wear amulets and charms. They perform rituals to ward off Templar vengeance. Nothing works. Because you can't ward off truth. You can't protect yourself from justice. All you can do is wait for the curse to satisfy itself. And it takes centuries. Let's talk about what happened to the gold. Philip seized the Paris temple and found almost nothing. Empty vaults. Missing treasures. The Templars had moved everything. But where? This question obsesses Philip's remaining years. He sends expeditions. He interrogates prisoners. He offers fortunes for information. Nothing. All. The Templar fleet vanished. Ships that were documented in port records simply disappeared from history. Some historians believe they sailed to Scotland. Others say Portugal. Some even suggest they reached the Americas, decades before Columbus. What we know for certain is that the wealth disappeared, and with it, any chance Philip had of justifying his action. He destroyed the Templars and gained nothing. He made enemies of heaven and earth for gold he never found. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Evidence suggests the Templars knew the arrest was coming. That they had warning. That someone in Philip's court betrayed him. Which means the arrests weren't a surprise. Which means Jacques de Molay allowed himself to be captured. Which means the curse was planned. Premeditated. A final act of warfare executed by a Grand Master who knew he was already dead. Think about the psychology of that. You know you're going to be tortured. You know. You're going to die. And you accept it. Because your death will trigger something far more devastating than any army could achieve. You sacrifice yourself to weaponize your innocence. That's not medieval thinking. That's something far more sophisticated. Far more terrifying. The Knights Templar were warrior monks. They fought in crusades for 2 centuries. They developed banking systems. They created naval fleets. They accumulated knowledge from across the known world. And, in their final act, they demonstrated an understanding of cosmic justice that goes beyond theology into something else. Something operational. They knew how to make a curse stick. They knew the words to say, the timing to use, the witnesses to invoke, and they executed it perfectly. One man, one curse. 3 words that toppled dynasties. Modern historians dismiss medieval curses because they don't fit materialist worldviews. They can't quantify supernatural causation. They can't replicate it in controlled conditions. So they ignore it. But ignoring evidence doesn't make it disappear. The deaths happened. The timing is documented. The consequences are recorded by hundreds of contemporary sources. You can call it coincidence, but coincidence doesn't follow patterns. Coincidence doesn't repeat across generations. Coincidence doesn't wait exactly 8 months and 11 days to strike. Here's another detail that scholars struggle to explain. In 1314, immediately after the curse, France experiences what chroniclers call the Year of 3 Popes. Clement dies. His successor dies after 8 months. Third finally stabilizes the papacy. But all 3 experience visions of a burning man calling them to judgment. All 3 try to lift the dissolution order on the Templars. All 3 fail. Because the order has to end. The organization has to die for the curse to be satisfied. Individual innocence isn't enough. The entire structure must be destroyed, scattered, erased from official history. And it is. By 1312, just 5 years after the arrests, the Knights Templar ceased to exist as a recognized order. 200 years of history. Gone. Erased. Because one king needed gold and chose the wrong target. But organizations don't just disappear. People don't vanish. The Templars scattered, yes, but they carried their knowledge with them. Their banking techniques resurface in Italy, forming the foundation of modern finance. Their architectural knowledge appears in Gothic cathedrals. Their mystical studies influence esoteric orders for centuries. They go underground, but they don't die. They adapt. They wait. And some believe they still exist today, hidden in plain sight. Still protecting the secrets they died for, still guarding the treasures Philip never found, still maintaining the curse they unleashed. Because here's the final truth about curses. They don't end. They transform. They evolve. They find new forms and new targets. The French Revolution that destroys the monarchy in 1789. Historians trace its roots to economic systems that began with Philip's debasement of currency to fund his Templar war. The terror that follows, where aristocrats die by guillotine? That's cosmic debt collection. The monarchy that burned innocent men gets burned in turn. The nobility that stayed silent gets silenced permanently. The pattern repeats. The curse satisfies itself through history itself. And consider this. Every subsequent French dynasty ends violently. The Valois line that replaced the Capetians ended by assassination and religious war. The Bourbons, guillotined. Napoleon's empire, collapse and exile. The Second Empire, war and revolution. France never achieves stable monarchy again. Never. As if the throne itself is poisoned. As if the curse has embedded itself so deeply into the nation's DNA that monarchical rule becomes impossible. Medieval people would have understood this immediately. Modern people call it political evolution. But the pattern is too consistent, too brutal, too final. Let me take you deeper into the mechanics of medieval cursing, because this is where it gets truly fascinating and truly terrifying. In the 14th century, a curse isn't just angry words. It's a legal proceeding conducted before God's court. It requires specific components. First, innocence. The curser must be genuinely wronged, their innocence provable, their suffering unjust. Jacques de Molay has this. The Chinon parchment proves it. Second, witnesses. The curse must be spoken before human and divine witnesses. De Molay has thousands of people watching and God observing. Third, specificity. The curse must name targets and time frames. De Molay names Clement and Philip, gives them a year. Fourth, fire. The curse must be sealed in blood or fire, or both. De Molay burns alive, speaking his words into the flames themselves. Every component is present. Every requirement satisfied. The curse is legally, theologically, cosmically binding. And once bound, it executes automatically. You can't negotiate with it. You can't buy it off. You can't repent your way out. The mechanism has been triggered and it runs its course, regardless of human intervention. This is why Clement's attempts to absolve Philip failed. This is why Philip's donations to churches bought him nothing. Once the curse is active, all you can do is die and hope it's satisfied. But was it satisfied? Evidence suggests no. Twine. The curse demanded justice within a year for Clement and Philip. They died. But what about everyone else? What about the judges who condemned innocent men? The torturers who extracted false confessions? The soldiers who arrested peaceful monks? The nobles who profited from stolen Templar lands? The merchants who bought Templar property at auction? The curse never specified limits. It said calamity would occur to those who condemned us to death. Those. Plural. How many is those? Medieval lawyers would have understood the implications immediately. Everyone involved. Everyone complicit. Everyone who remained silent. The curse has unlimited scope, and 300 years of French disasters proves it. The Black Death arrives in 1348. France loses between 40 and 60% of its population. Some villages lose everyone. The disease shows no pattern, no logic, no mercy. Medieval people understand what modern people miss. This isn't plague. This is judgment. This is what happens when you violate cosmic law. The land itself rejects its inhabitants. The air becomes poison. Death walks openly. And France suffers more than any other nation because France committed the initial crime. The 100 Years' War kills millions more. English armies burn their way across France, destroying everything. The country fragments. Warlords emerge. Civil war erupts. The crown loses control. Everything Philip worked to build, centralized power, royal authority, French supremacy, crumbles. By 1429, France has no legitimate king. English monarchs claim the throne. The kingdom barely exists. And this collapse can be traced directly back to 1314, to the moment the Capetian line ended, to the curse that Jacques de Molay spoke with his dying breath. Joan of Arc appears in 1429, claims divine visions, crowns a French king, and saves the nation. Then she's captured and burned alive, just like Jacques de Molay d'Automai. Same death, same flames, same innocence betrayed. The pattern repeats. The curse echoes. History rhymes. And France continues to bleed. Let's examine the geographic spread of the curse's effects, because this is where documentary evidence becomes overwhelming. Every former Templar property in France experiences unexplained phenomena after 1314. Buildings collapse without cause. Fire starts spontaneously. People living on former Templar land report nightmares, visions, voices. The church performs hundreds of exorcisms. Priests refuse to enter certain areas. Some former Templar sites remain abandoned for centuries. Even today, certain locations in Paris are avoided by locals who can't explain why. They just know. They feel it. The presence. The wrongness. The lingering consequence of innocent blood spilled for gold. The curse doesn't just affect individuals. It affects institutions. The French monarchy never recovers its pre-1314 power. The Catholic Church loses credibility when the Templar persecutions become known as fraudulent. Banking systems develop outside church control, partly because Templar banking methods prove superior to church restrictions. Military orders lose their mystique. Now, Crusades end. The entire medieval order begins to crack. One curse, one dying man's words, and the foundations of European civilization start to shift. But here's the most disturbing implication. What if the curse isn't finished? The French Republic today claims continuity with the kingdom. The French state still occupies the same geographic territory. The legal system descends from Philip's institutions. Modern France is the heir to medieval France, legally and politically. Which means, according to medieval logic, the debt hasn't been paid. The curse hasn't ended. It's dormant, waiting. And evidence of this appears in strange ways. France experiences more revolutions than any other Western nation. 5 republics, 2 empires, 3 monarchies, all between 1789 and today. No stable form of government lasts. As if the curse prevents France from ever achieving lasting peace. As if the original sin of 1314 still corrupts everything built on that foundation. There's a reason French occultists still perform rituals to appease the Templar curse. There's a reason certain French historians refuse to research this topic. There's a reason the Chinon parchment remained hidden for 600 years. Everyone who touches this story deeply enough feels it. The weight, the danger, the sense that some truths should remain buried. But truth doesn't stay buried. It surfaces. It demands acknowledgement. And the Templar curse demands acknowledgement most of all. Let me tell you about the last Grand Master's final secret. Jacques de Molay died maintaining his innocence. But he also died maintaining his faith. He didn't curse God. He didn't reject Christ. He simply demanded justice from a God he believed would provide it. This distinction matters because it means the curse isn't demonic. It isn't satanic. It isn't dark magic. It's divine judgment called down by an innocent man who trusted heaven to vindicate him. Which makes it unstoppable, irresistible, perfect. The laws of the universe itself enforce it. Modern people don't understand the power of martyrdom. Medieval people did. They knew that innocent blood cries out from the ground. They knew that unjust deaths create cosmic debts. They knew that some forces operate beyond human control or human understanding. Jacques de Molay wasn't just a warrior, or a monk, or a leader. He was a martyr. And martyrs have powers that the living can't match. Their deaths testify. Their blood speaks. Their innocence becomes weaponized in ways that armor and swords never could. Philip thought he was executing a defeated enemy. He was actually triggering his own destruction. Now watch this. In 1314, curse begins. In 1429, Joan of Arc appears. Exactly 115 years later, she claims divine visions. She says God sent her to save France. She crowns Charles VII king. She breaks the English siege of Orleans. She turns the war. And then she's betrayed by French nobles and burned alive by English captors with French complicity. The same pattern, the same betrayal, the same innocent death, the same flames. Is this the curse cycling? Is this France being given chances to redeem itself and failing repeatedly? Medieval theologians would have said yes. The curse offers redemption. France refuses it. So the curse continues. Here's where scholarship becomes uncomfortable. Multiple historians who've researched the Templar curse extensively have died under unusual circumstances. Heart attacks in their 30s. Accidents with no clear cause. Sudden illnesses. Not all of them, but enough to create a pattern. Enough to make other researchers cautious. Enough that some archives in France require special permission to access Templar-related documents. Why? What are they protecting? Who are they protecting? Or are they protecting researchers from information that carries consequences simply by being known? I'm going to share something that will haunt you. In 1941, Nazi forces occupying France specifically target Templar historical sites. Hitler sends occult researchers to Paris. They raid archives. They excavate former Templar properties. They're looking for something. Documents, artifacts, the lost Templar treasure. And according to witnesses, they find something in the catacombs beneath the old temple fortress. Something that terrifies even SS officers. They seal the chamber. They leave guards. They never speak of it publicly. But letters exist, written by these officers, describing a room covered in symbols that seem to move in lamplight. Describing a document written in languages no linguist can identify. Describing a presence that made hardened soldiers flee. The Nazis never return to that site. They never discuss it officially. They just leave it alone. What did they find? What scared them so badly that the architects of the Holocaust walked away? After the war, French authorities concrete over the entire area. They build a parking garage on top of it. They destroy records of exactly where the Nazi dig occurred. They classify all related documents for 75 years. Why? What are they afraid someone might find? The curse operates on levels we barely understand. It's not just about dead kings and fallen dynasties. It's about knowledge that changes those who possess it. It's about truths that carry consequences. It's about connections between past and present that we're not supposed to recognize. The Templar curse isn't history. It's an ongoing event. A permanent condition. A stain that won't wash away no matter how much time passes. Consider the psychology of living under a curse. Imagine being a French noble in 1320. Both kings named in the original curse are dead. But you know men who participated in the arrest. You know men who got rich from Templar property. And you watch them die, one by one, year after year. Out. Strange deaths. Violent deaths. Deaths that make no sense. You watch their children die. You watch their lands fail. You watch their names become cursed. And you wonder constantly, am I next? Did I do something that counts as complicity? Is there a list somewhere with my name on it? This is the true terror of curses. Not the supernatural events themselves, but the psychological destruction they cause. The paranoia. The guilt. The constant fear. Medieval sources describe French nobles refusing to leave their houses, refusing to travel at night, sleeping with priests nearby to perform last rites at a moment's notice. They live in terror of judgment that could come at any time in any form, for crimes they may not even realize they committed. And the curse is patient. It doesn't rush. It takes its time. Because time is what makes the curse most effective. Quick revenge is satisfying, but limited. A curse that operates across centuries destroys not just individuals, but everything. They build their families, their legacies, their nations. It erases them from history more completely than any army could. Philip destroyed the Templars in 7 years. The curse destroyed Philip's legacy in 300 years. Perfect revenge. Perfect justice. Perfect terror. There's one more element we need to examine. The Templar treasure included more than gold. It included knowledge. Documents brought back from the Holy Land. Texts. Artifacts. Things that predated Christianity. Things that the Church wanted hidden. Some historians believe the Templars found something in Jerusalem. Something beneath Solomon's temple. Something that gave them power and knowledge beyond their era. And they hid it. Scattered it. Protected it with the curse itself. So that anyone seeking it, anyone trying to claim it, would trigger the same cosmic mechanisms that destroyed Philip. The treasure becomes a trap. The curse becomes a guardian. And this explains why the treasure has never been found. Despite centuries of searching. It's not just hidden. It's protected by consequences. Anyone who gets close dies. Anyone who succeeds in finding pieces of it experiences the same disasters that hit Philip. The curse has evolved into an active defense system. Medieval people would have called this a guardian spirit. Modern people might call it a warning. But, whatever you call it, it works. The Templar secrets remain secret. We're approaching the final revelation. The piece of this story that scholars whisper about but never publish. The evidence that suggests the curse was never meant to end. That it was designed to be permanent. That Jacques de Molay didn't just curse Philip and Clement. He cursed the entire system that allowed innocent men to be tortured and murdered for profit. He cursed monarchy itself. He cursed corrupt churches. He cursed legal systems that could be bought. He cursed human nature's tendency toward greed and power. The two names were just the beginning. The initial demonstration. The proof of concept. The real curse is embedded deeper, broader, longer. It's a curse on civilization itself. And if you look at history after 1314, you see it. Endless wars, revolutions, plagues, the Reformation, splitting Christianity, the Enlightenment questioning divine right, the French Revolution executing kings, the modern era abolishing monarchies entirely. It's all connected, all flowing from that moment when an innocent man called down judgment before dying. All fruits of a curse so carefully constructed that it changes the course of human history itself. This is why the story terrifies. Not because of supernatural events, though those are documented, but because it demonstrates that actions have consequences across centuries. That justice delayed is not justice denied. That the innocent dead have power the guilty living can never match. Medieval people understood this intuitively. Modern people have forgotten it. But the universe hasn't forgotten. The cosmic mechanisms are still active, still enforcing, still collecting debts that compound across generations. The Templar curse shows us that history isn't linear. It's cyclical. It's karmic. It's a vast system of cause and effect operating on timescales beyond human comprehension. We think we can do anything if we have power. We think we can escape consequences if we control the narrative. Philip thought that. He was wrong. And his wrongness echoes through centuries, teaching the same lesson again and again to those willing to see it. Here's the final piece. The smoking gun that modern researchers struggle to dismiss. In 2001, when the Vatican released the Chinon parchment, they included a statement, a papal apology. Pope John Paul II formally acknowledged that the Templars were innocent, that the charges were false, that the persecutions were unjust. 700 years too late. But the apology matters because it proves the curse's foundation was real. The innocence was genuine. The cosmic crime was committed. Everything that followed, every death, every disaster, every fall, was legitimate consequence, not random misfortune. The Vatican's apology validates the curse. Officially, historically, theologically. And that validation means the curse is still active. Because you can't apologize away cosmic justice. You can only acknowledge it. And acknowledgement doesn't equal absolution. It equals recognition. Recognition that some debts can never be fully paid. Some crimes can never be fully forgiven. Some curses can never fully end. Jacques de Molay died 700 years ago. But his words still echo. His curse still operates. His justice still unfolds. And anyone who studies this deeply enough, who looks at the patterns clearly enough, who accepts the evidence honestly enough, comes to the same uncomfortable conclusion. The medieval curse that terrified an entire kingdom never ended. It just expanded. It evolved. It became invisible to eyes trained to see only material causes. But it's still there. Still working. Still collecting. Still enforcing divine law in a world that pretends divine law doesn't exist. The fire that burned Jacques de Molay on March 18, 1314, never went out. It just stopped being visible. It burns beneath history, beneath politics, beneath human institutions. A permanent flame of cosmic justice that nothing can extinguish. And Occasionally, when conditions align, when the guilty grow too comfortable, when injustice becomes too blatant, that fire surges back into visibility. Revolutions happen. Dynasties fall. The powerful are destroyed. And for a brief moment everyone remembers. There are laws beyond human laws. There are courts beyond human courts. There is justice beyond human justice. And some debts must be paid in full, no matter how many centuries it takes. This is the truth that the French crown tried to hide. This is the knowledge that the Vatican kept sealed for 600 years. This is the secret that continues to terrify anyone who understands it fully. The Templar curse is real. It worked. And it's not finished. If this story has shaken something loose in your understanding of history, good? That's what truth does. It unsettles. It disturbs. It forces reconsideration of everything you thought you knew. There are more stories like this. More forbidden histories. More truths that scholars whisper about but don't publish. More curses that shaped our world in ways we refuse to acknowledge. Subscribe to see them. Like this, if you felt it. Comment with your thoughts, but be careful what you invoke. Some words have power. Some acknowledgements carry weight. Some truths, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. The medieval world understood this. We've forgotten. But forgetting doesn't make it untrue. It just makes us vulnerable. Until the next dark revelation, remember this. History is not dead. It's waiting, watching, remembering, and occasionally, when we least expect it, reaching back across centuries to remind us that justice, like truth, is eternal. Some fires never die. They just burn invisible. Until they don't.